The shuttle's windows showed a sight that made Hana press her small hands against the glass. The luminous academy floated in space like a giant metal flower, its silver petals catching the light from the nearby star. Each petal was a building from a different alien species, all connected to form one massive station. Hana had never seen anything so beautiful in her 11 years of life. She clutched her small bag tighter. Inside was everything she owned now. Her clothes, some books, and the data crystal with her grandfather's voice on it. That was the most important thing. She touched the crystal through the bag's fabric, remembering his stories about old Earth battles. Stories about generals and soldiers and clever plans that won impossible wars. The shuttle docked with a soft thump. Hana stood up, fixing her uniform. It was too big for her, made for someone older. Ambassador Deho had tried to get it adjusted, but there was no time. He stood beside her now, his face showing worry lines. "Remember what we talked about," Deho said quietly. "Be polite. Be careful. Don't talk too much about Earth history." "Why not?" Hana asked. "They have history classes here, right?" Deho sighed. "Just try to listen more than you talk, please." The airlock opened. Hana stepped into the academy and felt like she had entered another world. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it. Strange plants grew along the walls, glowing with soft light. Students walked past in groups, and none of them looked human. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some looked like they were made of crystal that sang when they moved. They all stared at her. A tall figure approached. She had smooth gray skin and large dark eyes that reminded Hana of a mantis. Her uniform was perfect with medals on the chest. She stopped in front of Hana and studied her with those huge eyes. "Cadet Hana of Earth," the figure said. Her voice had a clicking sound to it. "I am Cadet Yuki of Valoria. I have been assigned as your guide." "Nice to meet you," Hana said, trying to smile. Yuki's face didn't change. Hana wasn't sure if Valorians could smile. Ambassador Deho spoke with Yuki for a few minutes, giving instructions. Then he turned to Hana. His eyes looked sad. "I have to go now. The embassy needs me. You'll be fine here. Just remember what I said." Hana nodded. She watched him walk back to the shuttle and suddenly felt very alone. Yuki's hand touched her shoulder. It was surprisingly gentle. "Come," Yuki said. "I will show you the cadet commons." "Then your quarters." They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Yuki explained things as they went. The blue lights meant safe areas. Red lights meant restricted zones. Each species had their own section for sleeping, because they all needed different environments. Humans were lucky, Yuki said. They could breathe almost anywhere in the station. The Cadet Commons was a huge room filled with tables and chairs of all different sizes. Some cadets were studying. Some were eating strange foods. Some were doing things Hana couldn't identify. Yuki led her to a table in the corner and told her to wait. Hana sat down and pulled out her datapad. She tried to look busy, but she felt eyes on her. Whispers filled the air. She heard the word human several times. Then a shadow fell over her table. Hana looked up and saw 3 older cadets standing there. The one in front was huge, with red scales and yellow eyes like a lizard. His muscles showed through his uniform. He smiled, showing sharp teeth. "So you're the human," he said. His voice was deep and rough. "The new pet." Hana stood up slowly. The scaled cadet was twice her size, but her grandfather had taught her never to show fear. "I'm Hana. I'm a student here, just like you." The cadet laughed. "Just like me? You think so?" He leaned down, his face close to hers. "Let me tell you something, little human. This is a military academy. We train warriors here. Real warriors. Not soft little creatures from backwater planets." Other cadets gathered around, forming a circle. Hana's heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. "You want to hear about real war?" The scaled cadet continued. "Let me tell you about the Battle of Crimson Nebula, the most famous battle in history. My ancestor commanded the Tarkonian fleet that day." He started telling the story, and the other cadets listened with respect. Hana listened too. It was actually interesting. The Tarkonian fleet had been trapped in a nebula by enemy forces. They were outnumbered 3-1, but they held their defensive position for 3 months. They rationed food and water. They maintained strict discipline. Finally, the enemy gave up and withdrew. It was taught as the greatest example of military endurance. When the story finished, the scaled cadet crossed his arms. "That is what real warriors do. We hold the line. We never break." We follow the code. He looked at Hana. Could humans do that? Or would you run away? Hana tilted her head, thinking. Then she pulled out her data pad and started drawing with her finger. Can I see the nebula map? From your battle? The scaled cadet looked confused but pulled up the historical map on a nearby screen. Hana studied it, nodding to herself. Then she said, why didn't they just leave? Silence fell over the commons. What? The scaled cadet said. Your defensive position, Hana said, pointing at the map. It had no strategic value. You were just sitting in empty space. The enemy wasn't trying to destroy you. They were trying to pin you down while they captured the supply worlds behind you. See? She traced a line on the map. If your fleet had done a fighting retreat here and here, you could have saved those worlds. Then you could have struck at their supply lines instead. She looked up at the cadets. They were all staring at her with strange expressions. The battle was won, the scaled cadet said slowly. We held our position. The enemy retreated. Yes, but you lost the war, Hana said, right? I read that the Tarkonians lost control of that sector 6 months later, because you had no supplies. If you had moved your fleet instead of staying still, you could have kept those supply worlds. Then you wouldn't have lost. The scaled cadet's yellow eyes went wide. His mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Yuki appeared beside Hana, her hand on Hana's shoulder again. That is enough for today. Hana needs to see her quarters. As they walked away, Hana heard whispers behind them. Loud whispers. Angry whispers. She looked up at Yuki. Did I say something wrong? Yuki's compound eyes seemed to shine in the light. That battle is taught in every military academy in the Concordat. It is considered perfect defensive warfare. Commanders study it for years. But it wasn't perfect, Hana said. They lost. The War History Complex was the most impressive room Hana had seen at the academy. It was spherical, with walls that could show any battle in history. Right now, the walls showed nothing but stars waiting for the lesson to begin. Hana sat in the student section, feeling dozens of eyes on her back. 3 days had passed since her comment about the Battle of Crimson Nebula. 3 days of whispers following her everywhere. Some cadets avoided her. Others stared at her like she was dangerous. Yuki sat beside her as always. The Valorian had barely spoken since that first day, but she stayed close. Hana appreciated it, even if she didn't understand it. The door opened and a figure entered. They weren't like any alien Hana had seen before. They looked like they were made of crystal, catching light and throwing rainbows across the walls. When they moved, musical notes filled the air. Beautiful and strange. I am Instructor Jiwoo, the figure said. Their voice was like singing. I teach tactical theory. Today we study the defense of the 7 rings. The walls came alive with images. 7 orbital platforms arranged in rings around a planet. Enemy fleets approaching from all sides. The defending forces holding position at each ring. The battle lasted 2 weeks. The defenders never moved from their positions. The enemy finally retreated, unable to break through. It was taught as perfect defensive tactics. Each ring supported the others. Each platform held its assigned position. Discipline and coordination won the day. Note the formation, Instructor Jiwoo sang. Each unit maintaining position. Each unit supporting the whole. This is the way of civilized warfare. Hana raised her hand. The musical notes from Jiwoo's body changed pitch, becoming higher. Maybe that meant surprise. Yes, Cadet Hana. Why didn't the defenders pretend to retreat? Hana asked. The music stopped completely. The room became very quiet. Pretend? Jiwoo said. Yes. If they made it look like they were abandoning the outer rings, the enemy would rush forward. Then the defenders could surround them from behind. My grandfather called it a feigned retreat. It works really well. A cadet stood up. He was tall with blue skin and too many arms. That would be deception. We do not deceive in honorable combat, Hana blinked. But war is about winning, right? Deception helps you win. War is about honor, another cadet said. This one had feathers and a sharp beak. About proving your strength through direct combat, not tricks. But if you lose with honor, you still lose, Hana said. And then the enemy controls your planet. And your people suffer. How is that honorable? More cadets stood up, all talking at once. Instructor Jiwoo's crystal body flashed bright, and the musical notes became loud. Everyone sat down. This discussion reveals an important difference, Jiwoo sang slowly. Different species approach warfare differently, but there are universal principles. Honor, courage, discipline. What about survival? Hana asked quietly. Jiwoo's crystal form seemed to dim. The music became sad and low. Humans, they sang. Your species has a reputation. It reached us even before you arrived at the academy. They say your people fought wars against yourselves, that you destroyed your own planet multiple times. Is this true? Hana felt everyone looking at her. She nodded slowly. Yes, we almost ended ourselves several times, but we survived. We learned. What did you learn? Chiwu asked. That losing is worse than anything, that you have to adapt or die, that rules don't matter if you're dead. Hana's voice was steady. My grandfather always said, a live coward beats a dead hero. Several cadets made sounds of disgust. Some stood up and left the room. Yuki's hand touched Hana's shoulder and Hana realized she was shaking. That afternoon, Hana found herself in the simulation center. Yuki had brought her there saying they needed to practice teamwork. The center was full of pods where cadets could practice commanding ships in battle scenarios. Yuki explained the exercise. 2 teams would fight a simulated battle. Each team had 5 ships. The goal was to capture the enemy's base station. Most teams did it the same way. Form a tight formation, advance slowly, engage the enemy in direct combat. What if we split up? Hana suggested. Yuki's compound eyes widened. Split up? But then we would be weaker. The formation protects us. The formation also makes us predictable. If we split into smaller groups and attack from different directions, the enemy won't know where to defend. That is not how it is done. Can we try? Yuki made her clicking sound again. But she agreed. The simulation began. Their opponents formed a standard defensive formation, exactly as expected. Yuki wanted to do the same, but Hana convinced her to split their forces. 2 ships went left. 2 ships went right. 1 ship went straight forward as a distraction. The enemy engaged the forward ship thinking it was the main attack. While they were distracted, Hana's side groups hit them from both flanks. The enemy formation broke apart, trying to defend from multiple directions. Before they could reorganize, Hana's ships reached the base station. The simulation ended. Victory in 4 minutes. The average battle took 20 minutes. When they left their pods, other cadets were staring at the scoreboard. Yuki's name was at the top, but beside it the AI evaluator had written, unconventional tactics. Erratic formations. Success by accident. A supervisor came over. He looked at Hana with suspicion. Did you use a cheat code? No, sir. We just attacked from different directions. That is not proper tactics. You broke formation. You left ships vulnerable. If the enemy had been more skilled, they would have destroyed you. But they didn't, Hana said. We won. The supervisor's face became hard. Winning improperly is worse than losing with honor. Run the simulation again. Use correct formation. They ran it 5 more times. Each time, Hana tried to use proper formation like she was supposed to. Each time they won, but it took much longer. And each time, more of their ships got damaged. Walking back to the quarters, Yuki was quiet. Finally, she said, your way was faster. And safer. We lost no ships in the first battle. In the proper formations, we lost 2 ships each time. So why is it wrong? Hana asked. Because it is not the way we do things. Yuki stopped walking. Her huge eyes reflected the corridor lights. But maybe the way we do things is not the only way. That evening, Hana was called to Commander Minho's office. The commander was huge, with red scales and cold yellow eyes. He sat behind a desk that looked too small for him. Cadet Hana, he said. His voice rumbled like thunder. You have been here less than a week. Already you cause problems. I don't mean to, sir. I just answer questions. Your answers challenge everything we teach here, everything we believe. He leaned forward. Tell me about human warfare. Tell me how you learned these tactics, so Hana told him. She told him about her grandfather's stories. About Earth's history of constant war. About battles where the smaller force defeated the larger through clever tactics. About generals who won by breaking rules and surprising enemies. She told him about nuclear weapons. About wars that could end civilizations. About how humans learned to fight not for glory but for survival. Commander Minho's face changed as she spoke. His eyes went from angry to shocked to something that looked like fear. Your people, he said slowly. You fight wars with no limits? No honor codes? No rules? We have rules, Hana said. But the first rule is to survive. Everything else comes after. Minho stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the stars shined peacefully. The galaxy has been at peace for 500 years. We have not had a major war since the convergence ended. Do you know why? Hana shook her head. Because we all fight the same way. We all follow the same rules. Wars can be predicted. Outcomes can be negotiated. No one wins completely, so no one loses everything. He turned to face her. Your way of war would destroy that balance. I don't want to destroy anything, Hana said. I just want to learn, and maybe teach what I know. That is what frightens me, Minho said. He dismissed her. As Hana walked back to her quarters, she realized something. The aliens weren't angry because she was wrong. They were angry because she might be right. And that changed everything. The grand symposium hall was filled with more beings than Hana had ever seen in one place. Thousands of them from dozens of species. Some sat in seats, some floated. Some hung from the ceiling. All of them were here to watch the demonstration. Ambassador Deho stood beside Hana in the preparation room. His hands shook as he adjusted her uniform. Please, Hana, please just do your best. Don't try to win. Just show them you can follow proper tactics. But why would I try to lose? Hana asked. That doesn't make sense. Deho closed his eyes. You're representing all of humanity today. Every species in the galaxy is watching. If you humiliate Commander Minho, it will create political problems for Earth, problems that could last generations. But Commander Minho challenged me. He said I needed to prove human tactics work.
How can I prove that by losing?
Sometimes diplomacy is more important than being right. Deho's voice was tired. Please, just this once. Think about the consequences. Hana didn't answer. She didn't know how to explain that losing on purpose felt wrong. Like betraying her grandfather's lessons. Like lying. The announcement came. It was time. Hana walked into the hall. The noise of thousands of conversations stopped. Everyone stared at her. So small, so young, so human. She climbed into her command pod, and the holographic displays came alive around her. In another pod across the hall, Commander Minho sat with confidence. This was his moment. He would show everyone that proper tactics, disciplined warfare still ruled supreme. He would prove that a child's clever tricks meant nothing against real military knowledge. The simulation loaded. The Battle of Broken Wings. Minho's greatest victory from the Convergence Wars. The battle that made him famous. He would command the defending fleet, just as he had 30 years ago. Hana would command the attacking force, the side that lost historically. The giant holographic display in the center of the hall showed everything. Every ship, every movement, every decision. Instructor Jiwoo provided commentary, their musical voice explaining the historical context. Commander Minho defended a vital shipyard against forces twice his size. He held position for 6 hours until reinforcements arrived. It is taught as perfect defensive command. The simulation began. Minho deployed his forces exactly as he had historically. A strong defensive sphere around the shipyard. Every ship in its proper position. Overlapping fields of fire. Mutual support. Textbook perfect. Hana studied her attacking fleet. 40 ships against Minho's 20, but attacking a prepared defense was always harder. Historically, the attacking force had tried to overwhelm the defense through direct assault. They had failed. Hana divided her fleet into groups. She sent 15 ships straight at Minho's position. Full speed. No subtlety. Just raw aggression. The hall erupted in confused murmurs. Why would she throw away a third of her force in a reckless charge? Minho's defense engaged them. His ships fired with discipline and precision. Hana's 15 ships fought back hard, pressing forward even as they took damage. They seemed desperate. Foolish. While everyone watched that battle, Hana's remaining ships scattered. 5 ships went toward a nearby asteroid field. 5 ships headed for a debris cloud. 5 ships began moving away from the battle entirely. The last 10 ships split into pairs and started moving in wide arcs around the engagement. Chaos, someone in the audience said. Complete chaos. She has no formation at all. Minho's defenders destroyed the 15 attacking ships. The audience cheered. First blood to the famous commander. His defensive formation held perfectly, exactly as it had 30 years ago. But then reports started coming in. The ships that had fled had circled around and were hitting Minho's supply depot behind the main battle. The ships in the asteroid field were ambushing his patrol ships. The ships in the debris cloud were jamming his communications. Minho tried to respond. He sent ships to defend each threatened position. but that weakened his main defensive sphere. And Hana's paired ships, those that had been circling, suddenly converged on the weak points. Minho's formation began to crack. Not because his tactics were wrong, but because Hana wasn't attacking his formation. She was attacking everything else. His supplies, his communications, his patrol routes, his ability to coordinate. "She's not trying to win the battle," Instructor Jiwoo sang, their voice filled with something like horror. "She's trying to win the war." The simulation had a time limit. 6 hours, matching the historical battle. Minho held his defensive position successfully. The shipyard remained defended. Just like history, the simulation ended. The display showed, "Defender victory. Objective maintained." The audience started to cheer, but Instructor Jiwoo raised a crystalline hand. "Wait, the analysis is not complete." Numbers appeared on the main display. Casualty reports, supply status, communication capability, patrol effectiveness, and then a projection. Based on the current state of forces, how long could operations continue? Minho's fleet, 17 days before supplies ran out. Communication systems at 30%, patrol network destroyed. 7 ships damaged too badly to continue fighting. Hana's remaining forces, fully supplied, communications intact, organized into effective raiding groups. The hall became silent. "Commander Minho won the battle," Jiwoo sang quietly. "But according to the analysis, he lost the ability to fight any future battles. His forces are crippled." The humans' forces remained combat effective. Someone in the audience stood up. Then another. Then a dozen. Arguments broke out. Some said Hana had cheated. Some said she had missed the point of the exercise. Some said the simulation was flawed, but a few, said nothing. They just stared at the numbers with growing understanding. Hana climbed out of her pod. She saw Yuki waiting for her, the Valorian's huge eyes reflecting the chaos in the hall. She saw Ambassador Deho with his head in his hands. She saw Commander Minho sitting in his pod, staring at the display showing his crippled fleet. A tall figure approached her. He wore an admiral's uniform, with more medals than Hana could count. His species looked almost human, but his skin was silver and his eyes were pure black. "I am High Admiral Hyunwoo," he said. His voice was cold. "Commander of the Concordate Defense Forces." "Nice to meet you, sir," Hana said. "Is it?" He looked down at her. "Do you understand what you have done here today?" "I participated in a demonstration," like Commander Minho asked. "You have demonstrated that 500 years of military doctrine might be obsolete. You have shown every species here that their fleets, their tactics, their training, all of it may be insufficient against an enemy that fights as you do." He leaned closer. "You have made the galaxy feel unsafe." Hana's throat felt tight. "I didn't mean to. I just did what my grandfather taught me. That is precisely the problem. What is normal for humans is terrifying for everyone else." He straightened. "I will be making a recommendation to the Council. Humanity may need to be isolated for the safety of the galaxy." He walked away. Hana stood there, feeling smaller than ever. Around her, the hall continued to argue. Military observers from every major species were talking urgently into communicators. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Yuki touched her shoulder. "Come, we should leave." As they walked through the corridors back to the cadet section, Hana could hear the whispers. Dangerous. Unnatural. Wrong. In her quarters, Hana pulled out the data crystal with her grandfather's voice. She listened to him tell stories about ancient battles, about clever generals, about survival against all odds, stories that made her feel proud and strong. But now those stories felt like weapons that scared everyone around her. She turned off the recording and looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home, where everyone thought like her, where her tactics would be normal. Here she was a monster, a child monster who had just challenged the greatest military commander in the galaxy and shown that his greatest victory was actually a strategic failure. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Hana cried, not because she had lost, but because she had won. And somehow that was worse. The alarm woke everyone at the academy at the same time, a loud, urgent sound that Hana had never heard before. She jumped out of bed, confused and scared. Outside her window, emergency lights flashed red. Yuki appeared at her door within minutes. "We must go to the assembly hall. All cadets, now." The assembly hall was packed with students and instructors. Everyone looked worried. Commander Minho stood on the central platform, his scaled face grim. Beside him, High Admiral Hyunwoo's silver skin seemed to glow in the emergency lighting. 3 hours ago, Hyunwoo said, his voice carrying across the silent hall, the Concordat fleet engaged an unknown enemy force at the outer rim. They call themselves the Ravagers. They attacked without warning, without communication, without mercy. A holographic display showed the battle. Hana watched with growing horror. The Concordat ships had formed their standard defensive formations. The Ravagers had scattered, attacking from multiple directions at once. They targeted supply ships. They used fake retreats to draw defenders out of position. They ignored all communication attempts. They fought like humans. We lost 60% of our forces, Hyunwoo continued. The survivors are retreating. The Ravagers are advancing toward our inner systems. And he paused. We do not know how to fight them. Silence filled the hall. Then slowly eyes began turning toward Hana, hundreds of them. From dozens of species, all looking at the small human girl standing in the crowd. Hyunwoo's black eyes found her. Cadet Hana, please come forward. Hana's legs felt weak, but she walked to the platform. Everyone watched her. She felt so small standing beside the Admiral. 3 days ago, Hyunwoo said, I recommended that humanity be quarantined. I said your way of warfare was too dangerous to share with the galaxy. I was preparing to isolate your entire species. He looked down at her. I was wrong. Murmurs spread through the hall. The Ravagers fight exactly as you described human warfare, Hyunwoo continued. Unpredictable, ruthless, focused on total victory rather than honorable engagement. Our traditional tactics are useless against them. He paused. We need your help. We need you to teach us how to fight this enemy. Hana looked up at him. Part of her wanted to say no. Wanted to remind him that days ago he had wanted to punish humanity for thinking differently. But she saw the fear in his eyes, the same fear she had seen in her grandfather's recordings when he talked about Earth's darkest times. I'll help, she said, but on one condition. Name it. I teach everyone. Not just commanders, not just a secret group. Everyone at this academy. Everyone in the Concordat who wants to learn. No secrets. No shame. Hyunwoo looked at Commander Minho. Minho nodded slowly. Agreed, Hyunwoo said. So Hana taught. In the great lecture halls instead of secret rooms. With instructors taking notes instead of hiding from them. She taught about human military history, about adaptation and survival, about fighting enemies who would not follow rules. But she also taught about the cost, about how humans had nearly destroyed themselves learning these lessons, about how winning without honor could damage your soul, about the balance between survival and morality. War should end, she told a packed auditorium. That is the goal. Not glory, not territory, not proving you are stronger. The goal is to make the war stop so people can live in peace again. Sometimes that means being ruthless, but it also means knowing when to show mercy, when to negotiate, when to stop fighting. Instructor Jiwoo attended every lecture. Their crystalline form would flash different colors as Hana spoke. Afterward, they came to her. I understand now, they sang. Your species learned these tactics not from cruelty but from desperation. You developed total war because you faced total extinction, multiple times. Yes, Hana said, and we survived. But barely, and not without scars. The galaxy must now face what humanity faced, an existential threat, and we must learn what you learned but faster. Jiwoo's music became sad. We do not have centuries to adapt. We have weeks. Commander Minho implemented changes across the academy. Traditional tactics were not abandoned, but they were contextualized. Students learned when to use honor-based warfare and when to use adaptive tactics. They learned that different situations required different approaches. The Ravagers continued their advance. More battles, more losses. But slowly the Concordat forces began to adapt. They learned to scatter their formations, to use deception, to target enemy logistics instead of just fighting head-on battles. Yuki graduated early, promoted to lieutenant. She was given command of a mixed-species squadron. Hana helped her prepare. I am frightened, Yuki admitted the night before she left. These tactics feel wrong, like I am betraying everything I was taught. You are not betraying anything, Hana said. You are growing, learning new ways while keeping what was good about the old ways. That is harder than just following tradition, but it is also stronger. Yuki's compound eyes reflected the starlight. If I survive this war, I will tell my collective that meeting you was the best thing that happened to me. Even though you terrified me at first. They hugged. An awkward hug between two very different species. But genuine, the decisive battle came 3 months later. The Ravagers had pushed deep into concordate space, confident that they faced an enemy that could not adapt. They were wrong. Lieutenant Yuki commanded her squadron in the battle. She used feigned retreat to draw enemies into an ambush. She split her forces to attack from multiple angles. She targeted their supply lines and communication ships. But she also maintained discipline. She also coordinated with other squadrons. She combined human flexibility with concordate organization, the synthesis of two approaches, stronger than either alone. Across the fleet, other commanders did the same. Tarkonian ships used deception tactics. Melodian vessels employed information warfare. Felorian collectives coordinated guerrilla strikes. The Ravagers had expected easy prey, species locked into predictable patterns. Instead, they faced an enemy that had learned to adapt, that could be both honorable and ruthless, both organized and flexible. The battle lasted 2 days. When it ended, the Ravager fleet was broken. The survivors retreated beyond the rim, never to return. Hana watched the victory celebrations from the Academy's observation deck. Commander Minho stood beside her. "We won because of you," he said. "You won because you were willing to learn, to change. That is harder than any tactic." Hana looked up at him. "Thank you for listening to me, even when it hurt." Minho's yellow eyes softened. "Thank you for being patient with us, for understanding that we needed time to accept change." The Concordate established a new department, Adaptive Strategic Studies. Instructor Jiwoo became its director. Hana became its youngest consultant. Still only 12 years old, but recognized as an expert. Human military advisors were invited to work with various species defense forces. Carefully, respectfully. Not to replace their traditions, but to supplement them. The Academy's curriculum changed. Students learned both rigid discipline and flexible adaptation. They studied traditional battles and unconventional warfare. They learned when to follow rules and when to break them. Ambassador Daiho visited Hana months after the war ended. He looked tired but happy. The Council approved full integration for humanity. No quarantine. No restrictions. "You did it. We all did it," Hana said. "I just asked questions. Everyone else had to do the hard work of answering them." On her last night as a cadet before graduating to the consultant position, Hana sat in her quarters with her datapad. She recorded a message for her grandfather, even though he was gone, even though he would never hear it. "Grandfather," she said, "I used your lessons. I taught them to aliens who had never thought about war the way humans do. At first they hated it. They thought I was dangerous. Maybe I was." She paused. "But then they needed to survive. And they learned that survival requires adaptation, just like you always said." She looked out her window at the stars. "The galaxy is changing. Not because humans forced it to, but because we showed them there are different ways to think, different ways to solve problems. And sometimes the scary new way is just the way that works." The next morning, Hana attended her first strategy meeting with actual military commanders. They treated her with respect now, not fear. They listened to her suggestions and debated them seriously. Yuki attended too, promoted to captain. When their eyes met across the table, they both smiled. The human and the Valorian, the first generation that would grow up truly integrated. High Admiral Hyunwoo ended the meeting with an announcement. "The Concordate is establishing a new motto for our combined forces: strength through diversity. We are stronger not despite our differences, but because of them." Everyone agreed. It was written into official doctrine that day. After the meeting, Hyunwoo approached Hana privately. "I need to apologize to you. I tried to isolate your species out of fear. I almost made a terrible mistake." "You were trying to protect the galaxy," Hana said. "That is not wrong. You just chose the wrong method." "Perhaps we did not lose our way," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Perhaps we just stopped walking. And you reminded us that standing still is not the same as being safe." That evening, Hana joined a group of cadets in the Commons, human and alien, sitting together, arguing about tactics and sharing stories. Some talked about honor. Some talked about efficiency. Some talked about finding balance between the two. A young Tarkonian cadet asked Hana, "Is it true that humans almost destroyed themselves learning these tactics?" Yes, Hana said honestly. We paid a terrible price for our knowledge. That is why we want to share it. So others do not have to make the same mistakes. The cadet nodded thoughtfully. Then we must learn carefully, with respect for what the knowledge cost you. Later, alone in her quarters, Hana looked at the data crystal containing her grandfather's voice. She did not need to listen to it anymore. She had memorized every story, every lesson, but she kept it anyway, as a reminder of where she came from. Outside her window, ships from a dozen species patrolled together, training together, learning from each other, building something new from many different traditions. The galaxy had feared human warfare, and that fear was not entirely wrong. Human tactics were dangerous, born from desperate times, but the galaxy had learned something important. Dangerous knowledge, handled with wisdom and care, could become valuable knowledge. And perhaps most important, they had learned that questioning traditions was not disrespectful. It was necessary, because traditions that cannot be questioned cannot adapt, and anything that cannot adapt will eventually fail. Hana smiled and turned off the lights. Tomorrow she would teach another class. More alien cadets learning human tactics. More discussion about balance and adaptation. More arguments about honor versus efficiency. It would be hard work, but it was good work. Building bridges between species. Combining the best of many traditions. Creating something stronger than any single approach. The galaxy was not the same as it had been when Hana first arrived at the academy. It was better. Not perfect, but better. And it would keep improving as long as people were willing to learn from each other. That was the real lesson. Not about tactics or warfare, but about growth. About having the courage to change when change was needed. About respecting traditions while not being enslaved by them. Hana fell asleep peacefully, dreaming of a future where humans and aliens stood together. Where differences made them stronger instead of dividing them. Where a child's innocent questions could change an entire civilization for the better. The galaxy had learned, and in learning it had survived. And in surviving it had become something new, something better. The emergency session of the Concordat Security Council took place 3 days after the demonstration. High Admiral Hyanwu stood before the assembled representatives of 12 major species, his silver face showing no emotion. The question before us is simple, he said. Do we allow humans to continue sharing military knowledge with the galaxy, or do we implement a protective quarantine? Ambassador Deho sat in the human delegation section, his hands folded tight. He had spent the last 3 days preparing his defense, 3 days of watching news reports showing how different species reacted to Hana's demonstration. Some admired it, many feared it. A Tarkonian representative stood, large-scaled, powerful. The human child showed disrespect to our greatest commander. She mocked our traditions. This cannot stand. A Melodian sang their response, their crystalline body flashing. She showed us that our traditions may be obsolete. That is not mockery. That is truth, however uncomfortable. A Valorian delegate clicked softly. My collective has analyzed the human tactics. They are effective because they are unpredictable. But unpredictability in warfare creates instability. Instability creates conflict. We have had peace for 500 years because warfare became predictable. The debate continued for hours. Deho listened, his heart sinking. Most species wanted the quarantine. Not out of hate, but out of fear. Fear that human thinking would spread. Fear that the careful balance of galactic peace would shatter. Finally, Yanwu called on him. Ambassador Deho, defend your species. Deho stood. He had prepared a speech about humanity's peaceful intentions. About learning to coexist, about the value of diverse perspectives. But looking at the faces around him, he knew those words would mean nothing. So instead, he told the truth. You're right to be afraid, he said. Humans are dangerous. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We developed weapons that could end all life on our planet. We fought wars over ideas, over resources, over pride. We are everything you fear. The council chamber fell silent. But we survived, Deho continued. We survived because we learned. We learned that being dangerous is not the same as being cruel. That having the ability to destroy does not mean you must use it. That sometimes the strongest choice is mercy. He looked at Hyunwoo. You want to quarantine us because one child showed you uncomfortable truths. But what happens when you face an enemy that does not care about your traditions? What happens when your predictable warfare meets unpredictable aggression? That is a hypothetical scenario, Hyunwoo said. So was our extinction. Until it wasn't, Deho sat down. He had said all he could. Back at the academy, Hana sat alone in the cadet commons. Most students avoided her now. Some stared at her from across the room, whispering. A few, very few, looked at her with something like curiosity. Yuki sat beside her as always, but even she seemed different, more distant, more careful with her words. My collective is angry with me, Yuki said suddenly. Hana looked at her. Because of me? Because I defend you. They say I should distance myself from the human. That your influence is dangerous. Yuki's compound eyes reflected light strangely. But I have been thinking. Dangerous and wrong are not the same thing. I don't want to be dangerous, Hana said quietly. I just want to help. To share what I know. Knowledge is always dangerous. That is why it is valuable. Yuki clicked softly. I am staying your friend, even if my collective disapproves. 3 cadets approached their table. Hana tensed, expecting hostility. But their faces showed something else. Curiosity. Nervousness. Cadet Hana, one of them said. He had blue skin and multiple arms. We were wondering, could you teach us? About human tactics? Hana blinked. Teach you? In secret. Away from the instructors. Another cadet leaned closer. Some of us think you might be right. That we need to learn to adapt, to think differently, so Hana taught them. In empty simulation rooms late at night. In corners of the library. In quiet spaces where instructors wouldn't find them. She taught them about guerrilla tactics, about information warfare, about fighting smart instead of fighting hard. Word spread. More cadets came. Some from curiosity, some from ambition, all of them hungry to learn something new. Commander Minho heard about it. He should have stopped it, should have disciplined everyone involved. Instead, he did something unexpected. Late one evening, Hana found him waiting outside her quarters. Commander, she said, nervous, I know I've been breaking rules. I'm sorry. Minho's yellow eyes looked tired, older than before. I have spent the last week reviewing the Battle of Broken Wings, my greatest victory. The achievement that defined my career. He paused. You were right. It was a strategic failure. I won the battle but set up future losses. Hana didn't know what to say. I have been a commander for 40 years, Minho continued. I have taught thousands of cadets. I thought I understood warfare completely. He looked down at her. I was wrong. And that is difficult to accept. I didn't mean to make you feel bad, Hana said. But you did, and that is good. Pain means growth. His scaled hand gestured to her door. May I come in? I would like you to teach me. Really teach me. Not in secret. Not in shame. I want to learn from you. Hana let him in. They sat at her small desk and she showed him everything. Her grandfather's lessons. Human military history. The principles behind her tactics. Minho listened like a student, not a commander. He asked questions. He challenged assumptions. And slowly, painfully, he began to understand. We have made warfare too clean, he said finally. Too honorable. Too predictable. We forgot that war is chaos. That enemies will not follow our rules just because we want them to. War should be honorable, Hana said. My grandfather believed that. But honor means different things to different people. For humans, honor means doing whatever it takes to protect what you love. Even if it's ugly, even if it's hard. Minho stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. Thank you, Cadet Hana, for showing me that I still have much to learn. After he left, Hana sat by her window and looked at the stars. The Security Council would make their decision soon. Humanity might be isolated. She might be sent home. But at least here at this academy, things were changing. Yuki visited later that night. She brought news. There is something you should know. My collective monitors communications. There are reports from the Galactic Rim. Ships disappearing. Colonies going silent. Pirates? Hana asked. No, something else. Something that does not follow concordant warfare protocols. Something that attacks without warning, without mercy. Yuki's voice was quiet. Something that fights like humans describe. Total war, Hana felt cold. Have they told the Council? Yes, but the Council is still debating what to do about humanity. They are distracted by you when they should be preparing for real danger. That night, Hana couldn't sleep. She listened to her grandfather's voice on the data crystal, trying to find comfort. But his words felt different now. Less like stories, more like warnings. The hardest lesson in war, his voice said, is that being prepared for peace makes you vulnerable to war. And being prepared for war makes peace harder to achieve. The trick is finding balance. The galaxy had found peace by forgetting how to fight. Now something was coming that remembered, and everyone was arguing about whether a human child was dangerous instead of preparing for real danger. Hana closed her eyes and tried to rest. Tomorrow everything would change. She could feel it. The galaxy was about to learn the difference between peace and safety, and maybe, just maybe, they would realize that the human way of war wasn't meant to threaten them. It was meant to survive, and soon survival might be all that mattered. They held their position with honor, Yuki said, but they still lost. Yuki stopped walking. She turned to face Hana fully. Do humans not value honor in battle? Hana thought about her grandfather's stories about retreat and advance, about tricks and traps, about doing whatever it took to win. We value surviving, she said finally. My grandfather always said the only unforgivable thing in war is losing when you could have won. Yuki made a clicking sound deep in her throat. Hana couldn't tell if it was good or bad. They reached Hana's quarters. It was a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window showing the stars. Yuki showed her how everything worked, then stood at the door. I must report this conversation to Commander Minho, Yuki said. Am I in trouble? I do not know. I have never met a human before. Yuki paused. Your people, they think very differently from us. Is that bad? Yuki's eyes seemed to study every part of Hana's face. Finally, she said, I do not know that either. Rest now. Tomorrow you begin classes. When Yuki left, Hana sat on her bed and pulled out the data crystal. She plugged it into her data pad and listened to her grandfather's voice telling stories about Earth's old wars. Stories about generals who won by breaking the rules, about armies that survived by refusing to fight fair. Outside her window, the stars shined bright and cold. Hana wondered if she had made a mistake today. Ambassador Deho had told her to be careful, to not talk too much. But the Tarkonian cadet had asked her a direct question. How could she not answer? She fell asleep thinking about battles and honor and the strange look in Yuki's huge eyes. In the morning, everything would change. But Hana didn't know that yet. She was just a small human girl in a station full of aliens, trying to understand why holding a position mattered more than winning a war. And somewhere in the command section, Commander Minho was reading Yuki's report with growing concern. The human child had just questioned the most celebrated battle in Tarkonian history. And worse, she might be right.